Well, you might as well. I'll bring him up in a second.
Okay. We're going. Okay.
You are listening to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, coming to you live on 105.3 right up to 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. UPRNtalkradio.com.
Looking for something new in sci-fi or fantasy? Check out what Brandon Sanderson, Orson Scott Card, Nnedi Okorafor, and others chose as the best news stories of the year in the L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future Anthology. From 24 award-winning authors and illustrators, plus art and writing tips and bonus stories. L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future. Buy your copy at galaxypress.com, Amazon, or wherever books are sold.
All right, everybody, it's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcast. Yes, it is that time of year again. There's a show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards, UFO Undercover, in the category of entertainment. UFO Undercover brings you some of the most revealing and current research that is being done with respect to alien abductions and contact. Host Joe Montaldo has been an abduction researcher for over 35 years and is uniquely qualified to bring you live interviews with some of the most well-known researchers in ufology. Go to podcastawards.com to nominate UFO Undercover in the category of entertainment. That's podcastawards.com, and please take a moment and get out and vote now.
All right, everybody, it's time for you to get out and nominate your favorite podcasts. There's an amazing show I want you to consider for the People's Choice Podcast Awards. The Outer Realm in the category of Best Female-Hosted Podcast. The Outer Realm is a very popular show hosted by Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano, which boasts millions of listeners each week who are well known for and have been complimented on their very laid-back, roundtable style of interviewing. Together, this dynamic duo brings you the best of the best with guests from around the world who are well-versed within their respective fields of ufology, paranormal, esoteric, and other areas of high strangeness, and more. So go to podcastawards.com to nominate The Outer Realm in the category Best Female Hosted Podcast. That's podcastawards.com, and please take a moment and do it now.
Welcome to Horsefly Chronicles Radio with Julia and Philip Siracusa. Sponsored by Carnation. Airing live on United Public Radio Network on 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. This show's opening has been produced, edited, narrated by Gwen Luckett at gluckett.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Monday night segment of Horsefly Chronicles Radio with myself, Julia Siracusa, and Phil Siracusa. We are broadcasting live from the United Paranormal Radio Network on 105.3 FM and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. We're also live on Roku, so you can watch us live from your TV. We are fully sponsored by Carnation, so we want to thank them for their sponsorship. We love them. You'll have to do a few things in order to participate. Go over to our YouTube channel, UFO Paranormal Radio. You can also go into all of the Facebook stations, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, UFO Undercover with Joe Montaldo, News on the Flip Side, Twitch, SoundCloud, Podbeam, and of course, our group, Horsefly Chronicles Radio. And if you have any questions for our amazing guests, please ask. So tonight, guys, we have another amazing guest. So please welcome to the show, Michael Christopher. He is an evidential medium. He has a very different style with connecting to his clients. his clients' loved ones. He's been trained with some of the very knowledgeable mentors in the field of paranormal. He's dedicated to sharing his gifts and also helping others open their own gifts they possess too. He has also had a 20-year career in the United States Air Force. So please let's welcome him to the show and thank him for his services. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julia. Hi, Philip.
Welcome. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet both of you.
Thank you for coming on tonight. It's going to be a great show. So we kind of like to start from like the very beginning. Tell us a little bit about the type of medium you are and how it's a little bit different.
You know, as I progress in this field, and it's been a little over 8 years now, it's always evolving. So the Evidential-Medium title, so that was dubbed onto me by my first teacher. When I had no idea what that meant, I was just going along with them like, okay, I'm an evidential medium. Later find out that it's a medium that really provides specific evidence. And the thing is, everybody does this, you know, so to me, it's just a title. Everybody produces evidence, you know, mediums. But for me, generally what comes through is, you know, a person's passing condition. You know, they may bring up dates or months that are specific to them or their family, you know, significant, you know, birthdays, anniversaries. I mean, that's just a tiny bit. You know, when I shift my awareness over them, I'm their voice. So whatever they want to talk about, I bring through, you know, so it's up to them. So I'm just the telephone, if you will.
Yeah, like kind of like the middleman, right?
It is.
Like
it really
the
is.
Messenger.
Yes.
Yeah. So have you had any childhood experiences that kind of like really made you want to research the paranormal?
Not at all. So I know when you talk to most mediums, they'll talk about how they had experience when they were young. And I was definitely not one of them. This really didn't present until I was 45. And it was a series of just life circumstances that, yeah, it's everybody has a story. Everybody's gone through something in life that's just, you know, makes you rethink a lot of things. And, you know, so that was my circumstance. Prior to 45, I had no idea other than reading about mediums, being fascinated by them. Did I ever think I was going to be doing this? Not a chance. I am a skeptic. You know, I've been an air traffic controller for 30 plus years, you know, 20 in the Air Force and then afterwards. So, you know, I still have that brain thing going on where it's, you know, you got to validate, you got to prove it. I'm my own skeptic for sure.
You're like Phil. That's how Phil is. He's the same way.
Yeah. I mean, when this stuff started, and it's a long story, but yeah, it was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, and it was pretty much me talking to spirit world. It's like, you're going to have to convince me, you know, I don't want to just sit in front of somebody and say, oh, your mom loves you and here's, you know, some hearts. No, we need to talk. You need to give me evidence, you know, and that's just how it's going to be. And, you know, funny enough, that's how it is.
Yeah. Wow. Well, did something happen to you?
Oh my God.
I mean, you don't have to, if it's too personal.
Oh, no.
But did something happen to kind of like push you into this whole crazy world?
Yes. And it's actually a continual story that spans about 23, 24 years. So I will condense it because it is a long story. So I'll just skim the surface. So I'll start with my two brothers. They were my stepbrothers. I just never considered them step. They were my brothers. They were born with cystic fibrosis. My first brother, Jason, passed away at 26. He was on a transplant list, but just became too ill. Wouldn't survive the surgery, so they had to take him off the list. And shortly after that, he passed. Year 2000, I was halfway through my Air Force career. I found out that I had kidney disease, and that's another long story. So, you know, I'm like, I went into this physical to learn how to fly planes, thinking I'm healthy. And then, you know, 20 minutes later, I come out with, you need to go get this checked because something's not right. So long story short, tests and all that, I was diagnosed with a type kidney disease that was already fairly progressed. And it was pretty much, they told me then, it was like, this will eventually go into failure at some point. So that right there was like my first, real shock of facing my mortality. I almost died at birth, but I don't remember that. I do have the scars to prove that one too, but I don't remember any of that. But this one was like, it just made me change my thinking on so many different levels. And again, that's a long story.
Yeah.
It changed my way of thinking about a lot of things in life. Shortly after my diagnosis, my other brother, Danny, he went in for a double lung transplant, survived it. 5 years later, his lungs rejected. He actually had the chance to do it again. Usually they don't do lungs a second time, but he did. Went through it fine. Everything worked out fine. We get to 2010. That's when I retired from the Air Force. And probably 6 months later, my kidneys decided they wanted to retire also. So, started dialysis, started looking for a transplant. Long story short there, everybody in my family was tested. My other brother tested, he was a match. This was May. We had the scheduled surgery for September. 2 weeks before the surgery, he gets a staph infection, which turns MRSA, and they called off the surgery. They said he's no longer eligible. So I'm like, wow. And again, I could go really deep into just my thought process, just everything, but that takes a while. Needless to say, I learned to live in the moment and not worry about tomorrow. That's the primary lesson I learned from that. But a couple weeks after we found out my brother couldn't donate, a buddy of mine that was still active duty reached out and said he wanted to donate. And I was like, what? He was still active duty. He was stationed in Mississippi at the time. I'm up in North Dakota. Long story short, he tested, perfect match. December 2010, we did the transplant. So it's been almost 13 years.
Wow.
And it's been great. Sadly, 2012, my brother Danny's lungs he developed kidney failure because of the transplant medications. It's very toxic, so it usually has some other side effects. It killed off his kidneys. And this man, I mean, you talk about a hero to me and somebody to look up to. I was like, I'll go through this stuff once. There's no way I'll go through what he went through. 2 transplants, now looking at a third with a kidney. I was like, dude. But he started dialysis, but unfortunately, a few months later, he developed lymphoma cancer in his lungs, and he ended up passing at 42. And if that wasn't enough, 2015, my sister Jackie was stabbed to death. She was a barber in upstate New York. Somebody snuck into her shop middle of the day on a Friday afternoon and intention to rob the place. And, that's what resulted of it. And 2 days after that, she passed away. Yeah, it was just, every time my mother called, I was like, what's wrong now? I don't want to answer the phones, it's like, but, that was the turning point, because a couple months after her passing is when I had like the first experience I can ever say I really truly had. And she paid me a visit, and I could talk about that, but I'll tell you right now, you have to cut me off because I will just talk and talk and talk.
I mean, I kind of like get where it's going because, it's so much sadness and tragic. And then, that happened to your sister. And then I guess that is when you kind of like really started to open up and.
Yes. I was getting up for work one morning, and I know I was in the kitchen by myself. It was 5 a.m. It was just me and my wife in my house. Our daughter was already off to college. So I felt somebody walk in the room, and I turned around. I was like, nobody there. And I was like, okay, go back to doing what I was doing. And probably a couple minutes later, I felt that presence again. But this time in my mind, it's weird how this works. And this is how clairvoyance works. I know that now. But in my mind, I saw my sister standing behind me. And in my mind, I saw her walk up behind me. And at the same time I was seeing it in my mind, I was feeling the energy. So it was just, it was weird. But she comes up, and in my mind, I see her put her arms like around me, and she put her head on my shoulders. And I just froze because I was like, all right, am I losing my marbles? What is happening? And if, 20 seconds maybe, and then everything, it just like stopped, and just that image went away, and I no longer felt the energy. And it was probably a couple weeks before I said anything to anybody about it. And funny enough, it was a psychic that I had been working with on her case. And I just happened to mention, hey, I had this experience. I didn't tell her much, and she validated it. she said, that was your sister. And she basically told me what I experienced. So I was like, okay, I know this is real now. You know, so that was the first, like, wow, that just happened.
Yeah, that's amazing. And now that you're at the place where you are, how do you normally see spirits? Is it like, how do you see them now?
So I see everything. Everything is it's in my mind. So it's mental mediumship, if you will. There's two types. There's objective or physical mediumship. That's where mediums actually see spirit like they would a person. They can actually see them with their eyes in different ways. Some people see them as solid, like they wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a spirit and a person. And then there's varying degrees of how they see. I do not see spirit with my I don't experience spirit with my physical senses. It's all internal. So just like when I saw my sister in my mind, that's how spirit puts images into my mind.
Yes.
So that's how that works. And the same thing for hearing them. I don't hear them physically, but when they talk, if you will, it's all like a thought transfer. So when I hear their voice, it's kind of like a thought of my own. So if I was to say to myself in my own mind, I need to go get milk, right? You can say that sentence in your mind. That's how I hear spirit talk. Sometimes it's in complete sentences. Sometimes it's a fragment and everything else in between.
No, yeah, I know, Phil, you want to jump in. I know that that's kind of the way that you, Phil, kind of like hear and see them too, right?
Yeah, he hit it on the head. When I was listening to him, it brought back some thoughts too, and he's right. And sometimes they'll role play, like you'll get, like if you're watching television through the mind, and you'll see clips. They'll show you clips of them, remembrance, and then you'll feel the vibration of that time when they were around the physical realm to reassure you that we're around, it's not over. And I really think that it's fascinating that you have these abilities. And it seemed like with some people, in order to get these abilities, to be a medium and have these psychic abilities, you need to have some kind of trauma effect to bring out that intentional vibration of thought and consciousness, that awareness of us, and it opens up. And then we're able to communicate with the other side in such a way where it's like, this is the validation I've been waiting for. And you know it's real because you feel that it's key to the heart, right?
Right.
And, you know, I'm listening to your experiences and your life story, and boy, I mean, if I had a box of tissues right in front of me, it's sad. I really feel for you. And the other turnaround of this, you have a gift to communicate with that side. And we always ask why so much tragedy within one person's life, you know? But when you have the ability to know that we do go on, it reassures us. Maybe you're not going to see them in the physical realm, but you're going to get that message in a spiritual realm. And it's kind of like the people that have the near-death experiences where they don't want to come back, number one, because of the other side's perfection, and they meet the loved ones. And what you're doing is now you have an open door from your story and your experiences. You have an open door of consciousness that you can communicate. And I do feel for you, and you do have an incredible gift, and you can help others with this gift. And I tell people, look, as a paranormal investigator and having guests on our show like yourself and people who've been in the field so long, we go on. And it's just because you think it's over when that person, or even when we cross over, right? And we think it's not over. It's not. There's so much behind it that we're like a little substance of a vibrational thought of what we really, truly are. Yes. And we learn through these experiences through people like yourself, what you've been through, and the near-death experience, and the out-of-body experience. And your story rings a lot of bells and whistles in the spiritual realm. And you have a calling, and this is your calling, right? now you can help people. You have a good energy, a passive energy, and it's not, by no means is what you're going through easy. I couldn't even fathom it. But I believe that we're chosen to experience certain things, whether we like it or we don't, because that's the way we've planned it out somehow. In the grand scheme of a soul's journey, we planned out the mission, but only to go back home with fulfillment of, this was my testimony, my journey. This is my pathway before I exited that physical realm.
Right. I was listening to Wayne Dyer the other day, and he said something that made me laugh, but it was so true. He goes, "We all have a round trip ticket from the spirit world." And I was like, wow, how profound. And that's, I often say too, why didn't this present earlier in my life? Why couldn't I start helping people earlier than 45? And my sister from the other side puts everything in perspective. One, I had to go through all this. I had to experience all of this. So I understand when I'm communicating somebody, I know what, I've experienced loss. I've experienced illness that I wasn't sure I was going to survive. So there was all those lessons I had to go through first in order to get myself to where, I was at that point to be able to start this different journey. So, I think that's all that was, definitely needed. It's just, when I think about it, it's just like, how did I get here? How did this happen? This was nowhere in my plans, but how life is, it can take a turn on a dime, and we're just here along for the ride. And, I've tried to run away from this several times, but I've been on the receiving end of messages. I know how important this is to people. And, you hear mediums talk about, you have to go through, really understanding who you are before you do this. And I now appreciate that completely, because name a medium that hasn't been raked over the coals, by somebody, social media, everywhere. And, I'm to that point where, one, I'm old enough that I don't really care what people say. It doesn't affect me.
What I tell people is, forget about if you're the last man on earth and no one believed a word you said. Forget about that. Push that aside, because the truth is what you feel with the intent that you believe, with the thought that you have experienced through an upper realm of consciousness. So no man's word on this planet makes a difference, because each individual soul, as it's its own vibration, you've created it all, and you can end it all. And in a fashion of, this is my experience, this is where my journey that I've planned comes to this point, and then it comes to the exit sign of 90 or 100 years old, or whatever it may be. But the truth lies with each individual soul. So no one, absolutely no one, you can mock and get your little words out there on social media. There are people that would not believe in the naysayers, but in the big fragment of vibration, it means absolutely nothing. You are everything, and you are that vibration of you. So everything you believe and have experienced is the truth, and no one can take that away from you.
Yeah, we have to learn to, in this field, you have to have thick skin. And no matter what you do, someone is going to say you're wrong, or they're going to disagree, or they're going to come at you in a negative way. I mean, it's just, it just goes with it. We always say you have to have thick skin.
Yeah. And this is what I tell people, because I also teach, and I'm like, look, you really have to get to a point when you're doing this work to just understand that you know who you are, you know why you're doing what you're doing. And my sister, again, from the other side, has put things in perspective to, and this is one lesson she shared with me, is like, look, if you let that one person stop you, that ripple effect, now all those people that you could have helped, now they won't be helped, because you let some stranger who doesn't know you determine who you are as a person. And I'm like, are you going to let that stop you, or are you going to keep going? So
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful.
Yep.
It's true. It's true.
I like that, the ripple effect, and that is so. And that's so true. And your sister from who's crossed over is giving you this information.
She every now and then I'll just ask her, especially when I'm having a hard time and like, why do I remember vividly this one experience. I was at a point where I was just, burned out, and I'm like, you got to give me a reason why I'm still doing this. And it's a long story, but I'll condense it. She answered me about 2 weeks later when I had forgotten about this conversation, or one way, yelling at her, why am I doing this kind of emotion? I went into a crystal shop that we normally visit, and there was a woman in there. And I'll really condense it because this was the biggest sign I ever got. I went in there. The energy of the store felt different from what it used to or usually does. Long story short, I was talking to the manager, who's a friend of mine, and she said something. I said, I'm the crazy one. I talk to dead people. And this woman looked at me. She ran over and she hugged me. And I was like, what's going on? She goes, I've been waiting to talk to a medium forever. And I said, okay. I said, here's my card. We'll set something up. And she walked away from the counter. And then I felt the presence. And I do not go up to people unsolicited. I don't do that. I don't give messages. But I looked at her and I said, look, are you open to a message now? And she said, yes. And I brought through the person that she was hoping to hear from. Long story short, between the 5-10 minutes I spent with her, talking with her and relaying messages, the energy in that store just shifted. And I won't get into the messages, but basically at the end of it, she said, you saved my life. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, I've been dealing with the guilt of his passing for 2 years, and I was at the end of my rope. And in no certain terms, she was telling me, it was like I was ready to end my life. And I was just like, what just happened? It gets better. We're in the car. We have a 2-hour drive to go home. I'm just driving along. I hear my sister. She goes, was that a big enough sign for you?
Wow.
And I about like,
there you go.
I lost it. I was like, oh my God.
And that goes actually to the question that I have. Do you think that everything happens for a reason?
Yes, I do. And again, my sister's my biggest, reason for doing this. So I get a lot of my inspiration from her. But one of the messages, again, that she gave me is like, look, what happened to me was tragic, but look what came out of it. Look what you're doing.
Exactly. Very good. I love it.
It's crazy.
I want to give a shout out to Lizzie. Hello. She's saying hi, everybody. Hi, Lizzie. Thank you for joining us. When you were in your time in the military, so you had absolutely nothing, never happened to you in the military that was paranormal. I always like, even though I had to ask that question.
Yeah. Now, I know there was a location, like, again, in the control tower. That place was an eerie place. I mean, it was there since the 50s. So, there's always these stories, and you hear stories. Did I ever experience anything? No. But looking back now, I can definitely see where my intuition was there and, telling me not to do something or I shouldn't, that gut feeling, little things that we all experience. But I never thought about it. Now I can look back and go, okay, that's what that was.
They think when you have those gut feelings, it's your guardian angels telling you something. I mean, is that true? I mean, that's what I don't know.
I mean, there's so many. I always say this: what you experience is your experience, and I don't think anybody should tell you what you're experiencing or how. So if that's what you feel or that's who you feel is guiding you, then believe that, because if I could put mediums out of business and just empower people to understand that you possess this, we're born with this ability. It's just we won't really understand how to listen to it or trust it. That's the biggest obstacle. But I believe everybody has this ability. I truly do.
The problem is, I believe the problem is with such a fast-paced society that we now have developed and live in. The true balances of life would be spirit and nature, where you can ground yourself and then talk to your inner self and communicate with the other side. But we're so blocked by the everyday activities of bills and traffic and work and
Exactly.
you follow, politics, and it becomes a static discharge, and then you get blocked of everything. And then we tend to get lost into, well, I'm just a robot like the rest of the world. And the truth is you're not just a robot, that 9 to 5, and you have to push that away. Remember that your time here is temporary. This is a short stay. No matter what age you make it till, it's still short. You may think it's long, but it's short. Going home, that's the journey.
Yeah.
But this is short. So you might as well embrace it and ground yourself along the way. And don't take it so serious, because guess what? You're born in the world with nothing. You're going to die with nothing, and no one escapes death. But
Very true.
you can take with you through vibration the essence of who you really are and the love that you built up. And what you're doing, I could feel empathically. I feel that. Now, when you look at someone, if someone says to you, can you talk to my loved one, my mom, dad, brother, sister? Do you have that ability sometimes that they'll come through?
So this, again, is a very controversial topic for some mediums. For me, it's not, because this is the way I did it from the beginning, because I didn't know any different. My journey has been probably, I mean, we all have a different, unique journey, right? But for me, when I first started, that's how I did it. When I sat down with somebody, even when I was developing, I would say, who do you want to hear from? Well, I want to hear from mom. Okay. And I wouldn't assume that that's the person that just stepped forward. They'd have to give me evidence. But that's how I do it. Because look, and my experience and my philosophy on this work has changed throughout the years and evolved. But I look at it this way. If Philip, say you came to me for a reading, and this is just hypothetical, but if you had your mom on the other side and that's who you were hoping for, why wouldn't mom be there? Spirit is omnipresent. They're always, our world and theirs, we're together. So why wouldn't she be there? But a lot of mediums, I feel, play it safe because they don't want to be told, no, this doesn't make sense. Where I think a lot of people just need to just go with it and trust that, again, if your mom, the person you want to hear from the most, why wouldn't she be here wanting to communicate with you? Yeah. So that's what I do. I ask them, who are you here for? Because I want to know, I want to budget my time. So if there's more than one person they want to hear from, you know, can I guarantee with all certainty that mom's going to step forward first? No, someone may step forward first, but why wouldn't mom show up? You know, I just can't believe that she wouldn't, if that makes sense.
I think it does to him.
No, it makes a lot of sense. In fact, something you said just rang true, because I lost my mom back in December. And if you know anybody who loses their mom and you're close, it's heartbreaking. So about a month ago, I was in New York at the cemetery, and I remember I said, Mom, if you can hear me, give me a sign or show me. Something just came to my mind. I said, show me a butterfly. Let me see a butterfly. Now, I don't know why I said butterfly, but I said butterfly. It just came to my mind. And I was waiting for a butterfly at the cemetery. I was waiting for a butterfly on my trip to New York, and I had no butterfly. Mm-hmm. So the night went on, and the next morning came, and I turned my iPad on, and I'm on Facebook, and the news feeds come up, and there was a huge butterfly to you, Mom, from me 7 years ago.
Yeah.
That is funny. They hit you when you're not expecting it. I tell people this all the time. It's like, you ask for a sign. You're going to get a sign when you're least expecting it.
Yeah. And sometimes you miss them. Sometimes you miss them because you're so busy. Life's busy. And we're not
look
always
for the signs, look for the validation, ask for communication, and don't be a skeptic and say, well, no. And don't put religion into the connection of the other side. Whatever your religion is and your faith and your belief, that's up to the person. But have an open mind that, yes, you can communicate with that realm. And I promise you, validation is there. Yeah. They're just waiting for you to validate their communication with you. A picture, the wind, a certain set that they used to wear, a song, and it never ends. So I love what you do. I'm all for it, and the naysayers and the negative responses, well, no matter who you are on this earth, you're going to get it.
Oh,
If
yeah.
God were to appear in the sky and the entire globe was out, half the population would say, I don't see anything, out of deniability of beliefs, what they want to believe in. So we each individually know the truth of ourselves and what we experience.
Absolutely.
True.
You know,
We do have a question from
Sure.
Lizzie, and it's a pretty interesting one. So, do you think people die for a reason, even if they go by their own choice?
All right. So as far as dying for a reason, you know, again, this is going to differ by people's philosophy, but my belief is, you know, when our job, our mission, whatever you want to call it, in this physical existence is over, we physically may not feel it, but our soul knows. It's like, okay, you've done what you wanted to accomplish. So on a soul level, I believe our soul knows when it's like, okay, it's time to go. Physically, you know, our human mind can't comprehend. So I believe we go when we're supposed to, in whatever way that is. I personally believe that we don't go before we feel that we've accomplished what we set out to do. That's just my personal belief. Now, as far as going by their choice, you know, I know there's a lot of controversy about what happens. And we all go to the same place, no matter how we pass. And I look at, you know, if somebody takes their life, I mean, it's the same if somebody was, you know, suffering from cancer and they didn't want to deal with it. That was their choice to end their life because they're done suffering. I believe it's the same way with somebody who's suffering from mental illness. You know, they can't deal with this anymore. They can't deal with the pain. So they do this. I don't look at that any different than somebody that passes from an illness. I don't, because it's their choice. Whatever the reason is, it's their choice.
Yeah.
So, you know, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I agree with you.
You know, it's a touchy subject, and I know because of religion, there's that, you know, side of, well, they'll be punished. I have never it's funny because when you do this work, any medium, you kind of have your specialties, you know, and for some reason, I communicate a lot with people that have crossed themselves over. Maybe because I don't judge anybody. I'll be anybody's voice. I don't discriminate. Whoever wants to come through, I don't care if you were a mass murderer, your physical life and your soul are two different things. I will give you a voice from the other side. It doesn't matter. So I'm open to everything and anything. But when they come through and they acknowledge that they took their life, I mean, it's almost immediately met with, I wish I wouldn't have done this. There was other ways. I see it now that I could have worked through this. And the regret is the pain that they caused their family. But they get to experience this from their side. They don't escape free. It's not punishment, but they get to feel how, okay, how did your mother react to this by you doing this? So they get to feel on a soul level how she felt and what she went through. And again, it's not punishment. It's to help them understand, okay, yes, I could have worked this out different. I understand now. It's a lesson. That's what they learn on the other side. So they learn from this. It's not punishment.
Yes. Phil, what do you say to that? I agree with you. What do you say, Phil, to that question?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And, you know, the soul, like some people would ask me too, like, well, why would a child chose to die at birth or a week old or 2 weeks old or and it's such a horrific way? We don't have all the answers.
Right.
We don't. And no one does. There's no expert. Anyone thinks there's an expert, get your head checked because there's no expert.
There is not.
But through what I know and through mediums and talking to people and paranormal investigating, it seems through communication with the other side that we see it in the physical realm as this, oh man, how could you want to go like that? Or why would you die like that? It's so sad. But before that soul picks the journey, they may just have a couple things that they wanted to feel because maybe they have many of journeys before reincarnation. And they just had to finish up a few other things they wanted to experience on a soul level, right?
Right.
That's the way I would explain it. Again, there is no expert on this whole topic, but from gathering the information that we've gotten, talking to the other side, that's what I would say is they pick their journey, and they pick their exit sign, and they say, okay, we're done here now. We're done. And we don't accept it, right? I don't accept a friend's or a relative or a parent's death. No one accepts it. We don't want it to happen. We want to put the clock in reverse and go backwards when they were around. But through paranormal investigations, we've learned that we have it wrong. We are measuring it different because where there is no time, we've made this all up. What does really exist is the realm of forever. There is no beginning and there is no end. Our energy is never created nor destroyed. It's always existed. It's just that we go on through different experiences, and will we ever see that person again? Of course. Once you cross over to that realm, most definitely. But can they see us now? Most definitely. Most definitely. And that's just not my words. Like, through investigations and dealing with paranormal teams from around the world. And you talk at the beginning of the show, you talk about like debunking and your own person who wants to decipher the truth. Well, I'm the worst with that. I debunked everything in the beginning. But when you get intelligent responses,
everything is like. No.
I'm from New York too. I just, I lost the accent. I've been in North Dakota for too many years, so that New York accent.
When we received voice recordings from the other side on the digital recorder, not a spirit box. I don't really buy into that spirit box thing, but the digital recorder where you could hear a pin drop, and you were getting an intelligent response, verbatim, we go on. Yeah. These are clear as fact. Believe it or not, these are the intelligent responses from another realm of existence of people that we've known. So your journey, what you're doing, once again, I take the hat off to you for having it on, and hands down, I can feel the validation of what you're saying. And it's great. So your mission here, what I believe, is helping others. Building up, because right now the world is a very sad place, very sad. So much death and chaos, and no one even knows if they're going to wake up tomorrow being nuked. I hate to say it, but these are the times we're living in. And it takes people like yourself to have that courage to come forward and help validate this is not it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the biggest message, I think, is just, and again, I go back to what gave me peace going through my health issues. Just that thought of knowing that there's something else, even considering the thought that there possibly may be something beyond this physical world. It brought me so much peace because I didn't know if I would make it, and I was just like, at least, I know my brother, I just felt it in my heart that my brother was there. I knew that if I didn't make it, he was there. And, at that time, and it did. So, again, there's a lot of reasons why I do this work, and it takes a special kind of person to put themselves out there and do this. It really does. And, my hat's off to every single person that does this work, because it's not easy. You see, I always say, and I admire the TV mediums because they have opened the door for so many. But, when you see a reading on TV, you're getting 5-minute highlights of an hour reading. You don't see the other stuff that they go through when the cameras are not rolling, and just everything multiplied, especially being on TV. So again, the people that do this work, I mean, it really takes a special person, to want to do this. And, I always say I walk the line between sanity and bat crap crazy. So
yeah, because I don't think a lot of people realize that it's extremely draining.
It can be if you don't learn. You have to be disciplined. When I'm not working, I'm not working. People talk grounding. To me, grounding is getting out on the motorcycle, playing my drums, not thinking about this other world. I just live my physical life. That's grounding to me.
Yeah.
So it's a discipline where if I'm not working, it's shut off, because I've burnt myself out by just doing the go, 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 go. And that lasts for only especially when I was trying to balance air traffic control and doing this on the side. That's a whole other topic.
You have to like learn how to shut it off too, and that's really hard, because sometimes the spirits they're like, oh, we're not on.
It's about boundaries, though. If you establish boundaries with spirit, they respect it. And that was, thank God, my first teacher taught me boundaries about. I literally took a pad of paper and wrote out like verbatims, like, don't come in my room at night, don't bother me at work. It's like, so when I go about my day, I'm oblivious to everything else going on around me. They don't interfere with my life at all. And again, I think it's that mutual respect. They understand that we have a physical life that we're trying to live, and we're not all about them, So again, that's a discipline that I've learned, that, there's work and there's not work. So
absolutely. So, and Lizzie said, thank you. That is the best answer that that you can explain. I can get the comments up, but I can't get them down, so I apologize.
I'm the same way. So, but Lizzie, I appreciate that. I'm glad I could make sense of that for you.
Antonia said, free will is a powerful tool. That is.
Oh, Tanya. I know Tanya. She's a friend of mine. Yes.
True.
It is definitely a powerful tool. And I can tell you about quitting my job 3 different times and now doing this full time. That could be a whole nother story about, psychics telling me one thing and free will coming into play, because, many of my friends are psychics, and they said, we see you leaving your job. And I'm like, yeah, I feel it. But the first time I did it, it was like, it didn't feel right. And I went back. So that was not that they were wrong. It was just, that was not my time to do it. So I'm a slow learner, but the third time now, I left in April, and that door is cemented shut behind me. This is what I'm doing. And it's weird, because I don't just say that. It's like, I feel it this time, that this is it. I don't have an option to go back, and this is what I do now. And I will do this until I'm back there, so this is it. This is my work.
Yeah, totally get it. Yes. So what about aliens? I mean, what are your thoughts on all of this stuff that's going on?
I believe in everything and anything, because our human mind is so like compact and critical. We think about things. How could you possibly not think that other entities or whatever exist? I can't even fathom that we're the only beings in this universe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, given the work that I do too, how could I close the door on thinking, well, spirit's real, but aliens are not? It just doesn't make sense to me, So I believe that if somebody has experienced it in whatever way, it exists somewhere. It has to. Where would that thought come from?
There's a lot of evidence. I think you're right. I think there's just too much evidence that it's just like, spirits and paranormal investigating. There's just so much evidence of it.
Yeah. How could you deny it at this point?
Exactly. I know. And Phil's he's more educated and knowledgeable on that subject than I am. So if he wants to say anything.
Yeah, I am too. I specialize in talking to the dead. That's my thing. I've been invited to go on paranormal investigations, which I've done a couple times, but what ends up happening is I'm either feeling the residual energy of the location, or somebody that's with us, I'm talking to their relatives that have crossed over. Yeah. So that's what happens on the few times that I've done it.
Yeah, I could imagine.
How can you? So we have a lot of listeners out there, okay? Yeah. And I would like there's a lot of people grieving right now, a lot of loss. Give them some helpful words on communicating with loved ones that have crossed over.
I'll tell you one common theme that they want for us. And I think because of the way I am as a person, I do not take life serious, especially after going through what I've been through. I've tried to be serious and I can't. So spirit understands I'm a clown, right? So they tried to get me to pass along. It's common. They just want us to laugh. They want us to enjoy the time that we have here. It's temporary. Yes, we're never going to get over the loss of somebody. We never will. We never should. They're always going to be a part of our life. And I say the hardest part is learning to live without them physically here. That's the hardest part. But knowing that we are going to be together again, to me, provides comfort. But when they come through, and here's a for instance, I usually ask a spirit person, at some point in the reading, I'll ask them, what do you do to let, like, if it's a parent, what do you do to let your parents know you're around? So I don't know if I can say break wind or whatever. I don't know what I'll just say that. I literally had a male spirit that I was communicating with that was killed in a motorcycle accident. I sent that thought to him, and it was like immediate. He goes, I break wind. And I was like, he didn't say break wind, right? I sat down. It was a public demonstration. I sat down, and I'm like, I was laughing so hard, and they're all looking at me like, what? I said, just give me a minute to compose myself. And I eventually got it out. I said, look, this is what your son said. And her jaw dropped. She stands up. She points to this lady in like the third row. She goes, I knew it. She goes, I was at work the other day, and I smelled this sulfur smell. And she goes, nobody else smelled it. She goes, I knew that was my son. And I'm like, yeah, that's him. Wow. So it's like they want us to enjoy our time here. They don't want us crying over them. And I know it's a human thing we're going to. It's a part of who we are. But from their perspective, it's like, man, don't take life so serious. Enjoy your time here. It's short. It is so short. And again, going through what I've been through, I look at everything now so different that I almost ask myself, why does this happen for me? Not why did this happen to me? Why did it happen for me? And there's always a lesson in it. And if people that knew me, during my military time and see me now, I'm two different people because I was such an but it really is. It's you just you can't take things serious. You can't. You just have to enjoy the time here. And that's the biggest message they want, and it's been brought through so many times in so many different ways.
Great answer.
I agree with you. And I would also add to that, because I do this, if you're stuck with something in the physical realm and you're like, I don't have an answer, I need help getting through this. I need a way to figure something out, or I need communication of, am I making the right choice? Ask the other side. And sometimes through the dream, a loved one will appear and you'll get the messages that you're looking for, or sometimes through your consciousness and you're like, wait a second, I have a thought. They'll implant a thought in your mind's computer in a way where you're like, wait a second, I have an idea now how to get through this obstacle in life. Yeah. Listen to the signs, validate, appreciate, love, respect, and always remember that the other side is always with us.
Yep. And that's the thing. They're there to guide us. Just like you said, they will guide us. They will give us those thoughts. And immediately you'll think, man, I was really overthinking this. They just gave me this idea that's so simple. Why didn't I think of that? And again, I always tell people, it's like psychic readings. My interpretation of a psychic reading is not what you think. It's not giving you the lottery numbers or telling you everything's going to be okay. It's connecting with your soul, and your soul bringing things up again that you've forgotten, or validating what you already feel. Just like you said, Philip, all of a sudden you get these aha moments. Where do you think that's coming from? I believe it's coming from our higher self, which is a part of our soul. Only a small percentage of our soul inhabits our body. The rest of us is still there. So I believe that's how I look at it. When I'm talking to myself, I'm communicating with myself, my higher self. And I believe that's where those aha moments can come from as well as your family and friends on the other side. Yeah. You get those, why didn't I think of that moments, those inspiration, moments of inspiration.
Definitely. Yeah, that's true.
Now we're stuck. Now where do we go from here?
No, it's people taking it in. I'm taking it in.
Yes.
Your words, I'm embracing your words because they speak truth, and your guidance here along the way, and while you've been through a lot of sickness, and you're here for a reason, right? You're here because your journey's not over. Now your journey from this point is to help others get along their journey in the best way that you can. And, in the field of paranormal, like, Julie and I, we live in a haunted house that is not friendly. It's not a good haunting, but we've learned so much that we've wanted to have our own radio show and have guests from around the world like yourself and people with abilities to teach others that, well, number one, we go on. Number two, ghosts are real, angels are real, spirits are real. This is all real. This make-believe or fantasy land. And back in the 60s or 70s, it was dismissed or debunked in such a way where you were looked at and laughed upon. Now it's widely accepted of that awakening period has happened where people are more receptive to listening to mediums like yourself and gaining their own insight abilities to help them get forward and the things they want to for their journey. So this has been a learning show, a tearjerker show as well, because, man, you've been through a lot, we've all been through a lot, but you've been through a lot, and you have that wisdom in you, that courage and that fire to keep going. I had a friend, I'll just tell a quick story, that he was always into the fitness and the bodybuilding and hardcore trainer and all that. And you say, well, where did he get the rest of his life by doing that? Was it competitions, or was it, where it went? He met somebody and then unfortunately had a disabled child. And now he runs marathons around the world to help other kids with that same mental illness and that physical illness that his child is going through. And that awareness of helping others through the stamina that you once had when you were doing the work you've done, now carried over into another part of your life, where it's like, now I have all that wisdom and all that knowledge, and I changed the form of me to help others along the way. That part of me is over, and this part of me has just begun. So 2 thumbs up to you. Great guest, great show. People share this show, because a lot of moments in here of what people go through and their experiences and our journeys and how short it really is, and appreciate the other side because they are always listening. With that said, where can people find you if they need help, and what do you have going on?
So my website's michaelchristophermedium.com. I'm on Facebook, and for whatever reason, friends talked to me into doing TikTok. So now I'm on TikTok, and I finally have enough followers to where I can do lives. I do a lot of lives. I get on there for an hour, hour and a half, and I just do free readings, because to me, it's all about giving back. Because I know there's people that either won't pay for a reading or can't pay for a reading. So this is a way for me just to help others. And I always say, when they watch the live readings, you may not get a personal reading, but by listening to the messages coming through, we can always relate. And I always look back to when I saw John Edward on TV. I knew I'd never get a message from John Edward, but I could always resonate with the messages that do come through. So we all get something out of it. So I do that several times a week. I do a radio show on Monday with my friend Jennifer on WLTK DB Radio. And we do live readings there on air as well. So I'm all over the place.
Yes. Wow. Well, thank you for coming on tonight. We really appreciate you telling us your story. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the invitation. I enjoyed talking to both of you. And I'm glad I could, share some of this with you.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Thank you so much. This has been a great experience and a great guest. And Julie, having said that, it's 9 p.m. Wrap it up.
So special thank you to Carnation for fully sponsoring the show. We love them. Please join us next week on the United Public Radio Network on 105.3 and 107.7 FM from New Orleans. And don't forget, we are live on Roku right now. So thank you, guys. Join us next week. Goodbye. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
guys. Appreciate
Bye.
it.
Thank you.